Hello and welcome to another weekly update. Plenty of interesting things to talk about this week actually, so getting straight into it. The first is, I'm doing these slightly out of date order, but never mind. The first is a blog post I did a few days ago. I was at Microsoft Teams Airlift event in Amsterdam this week, which was really good fun actually. It was brilliant to catch up with everyone. Really good to kind of hear some of the cool stuff that's happening in the Microsoft Teams team, as well as kind of other related parts of that organisation. So yeah, it was really good couple of days. Got lots out of it. So one of the blog posts I wrote just kind of on the side whilst I was there is about Ignite that's coming up, and just calling out a couple of speakers that you might not have heard of. Now, it's really a good idea, I think, to, when you're building out the session builder in your Ignite schedule, figuring out who you want to go and see. Once you've been through the kind of core sessions that you really need to attend, you really got to get a lot out of. I think it's a good idea to go and just go and get some sessions from somewhere completely different. Learn something that you didn't previously know anything about. A good way to do that, I think, is to go and find really good speakers, because if you're going to completely mix up the content, you want to make sure it's going to get really well delivered, so you can kind of really suck it in and take it in. And so what I did was a blog post calling out 4 speakers who were top rated last year at last year's Ignite, top rated by attendees, so that the kind of feedback session stuff that you do at the end of every session, Microsoft take all of that, they collate it. I went and asked Microsoft, can you give me some names of people that were top rated last year, and this is what they came back with. So that's what my blog post is. So if you are looking for really good speakers to go and see at Ignite, use this list. It's a kind of good way of finding out who the good speakers are. So that's the blog post I did last week. Other people have been writing blog posts though, so two of those, but actually I'm going to talk about are from the Microsoft Graph team. And they've been certainly busy recently. So they, I've talked about this slightly before, about their authentication libraries, but actually they've just gone GA on a set of libraries for authentication for Android, iOS and macOS, which is amazing really, like, new Microsoft and all that kind of stuff. But so the idea here is use the Microsoft authentication libraries to do all the kind of authentication work you need to do. Don't be writing this stuff yourself. No developers like writing authentication stuff. Well, I say no developers, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a particularly fun thing, and it's, don't do it. Like, these people, Microsoft, they understand authentication really, really well. They will do a better job. Don't try and write your own authentication providers. It's just not worth it. So for doing anything with the graph, any access, graph access, anything like that, use these MSAL libraries. It's really, really cool that they've got them for iOS, they've got them for macOS, they've got them for Android. It's awesome. That supports single sign-on as well in 2 different ways, using the default browser, so it'll pop the kind of default browser up, so you can do that as a sign-in. But it can also do brokered auth, so you can use the authentication app, or you can use the company portal, whatever your organisation has. So awesome stuff. If you're doing anything on Android, if you're doing anything on Mac, if you're doing anything on iPhones or iPads, absolutely, if it talks to Graph and you need to do that authentication step, do it using these libraries. They're really, really cool. Okay, another blog post from the same team actually, because they've moved around some of their CDN URLs. So what is this about? So again, Microsoft Authentication Library team. There's a JavaScript library you can use to do MSAL. So if you're putting in, web-based apps and stuff like that, and there's a CDN that gets hosted at. It's this is quite common, using CDNs for JavaScript and stuff like that. So the big news though is that they're moving to a new set of CDNs. So the old ones are not going away yet, but they will kind of go away at some point next year. So long enough away that it probably isn't a problem right now. But if it's easy to change, you might as well change now, because the newer ones they'll have better availability, they'll be more resilient, all this sort of stuff. So it's just a change to the URL. Everything else stays the same. Yeah, there's no kind of real difference other than that. So that's all good, and it's worth kind of doing if you get the chance. There's min versions as well as the kind of standards. There are integrity hashes as well for both of them, so you can put all that. You can, they've got some examples about using it as a fallback as well, so you could actually fall back from the new one to the old one, or from the old one to the new one, now that you've got two different URL domains, or to a local copy as well. Kind of up to you. But I just wanted to make you aware of that it is happening, it is coming. If it is in your power to change those URLs, go and do it now before you forget about it, basically, because at some point next year they will turn it off, and that's probably not the right time to find out that you forgot to update it. Okay, let's do some fun stuff because it's the weekend. Cool post from Scott Hanselman about the Windows terminal. So I've talked about the Windows terminal before. I think the last time I spoke about it, it was super insidery. You had to jump through some hoops and compile some stuff to get it. I went through that process. It was a lot of fun. It's a lot easier now. You can get it from the store. Things keep moving on. They keep adding a bunch of new features. This is a good kind of point, I think. So if you haven't had a play, to kind of pick it up again and maybe have a play. It's not officially released. It's not a 1.0 yet. Things are changing all the time. It's around about a 0.5 at the moment. So, but it's kind of good to play with. It's good to go and try a different, terminal every now and again. And this one's they've picked up so many cool features from, from I guess like the Unix community. That kind of. There's terminals that do so many different things that look really cool. You can have different themes, you can have different color schemes, you can bring in PowerShell commands. There's so much fun stuff that you can do to make the terminal more interesting. So it's worth doing. Why not? Like, play around. If you're in terminals, in and out every day, you might as well have a fun one. And actually, you can be, if you invest a bit of time, you can be super productive in terminals. And so some of these additional commands to do, kind of split the screen out. So do some timing stuff, like do some reordering of things. You can be really productive. So it's definitely worth digging in and trying to understand some of that stuff. And finally, some news as kind of Microsoft-y people move news that I think is important, and here's why. So Donna Sokka, who you may or may not have heard of, she is the person that is in charge of the Windows Insider program. So she's super cool. She's super active on social media. She's kind of very friendly. Always giving us all the kind of cool news about what's happening with the Insider program. She's been a real kind of a lead there for that program. She's leading that program. But it's interesting to see where she's going. She's going to a new position focusing on advocacy, kind of similar thing that she was doing for Windows Insider, but for Microsoft's Power Platform. So that's the low-code, no-code platform that encompasses things like Power Apps, as it functions, I guess kind of falls slightly into that, Power BI, Flow, and all those kind of low-code, no-code solutions. That's kind of interesting because she is a force, and she will kind of bump that Power Platform and make it, more visible. She will amplify the work that they're doing, and it's a real kind of a show, if you like, of how Microsoft think this stuff is important. So don't ignore the Power Platform, even if you're like a hardened, experienced developer and you're a bit poo-pooey about the Power Platform. Don't be. It's like there's so many things that you can make your life easier. You don't have to always write code from scratch. If it's been done before and you can do it really quickly in Flow and Power Apps, why wouldn't you do that? I thought it was an interesting person move to tell you about. It's gonna be interesting to see what it does to the Power Platform now. I think it's going to be a good thing, and it'll be interesting to see as well who replaces Donna on the Insider program. Alright, that's everything from me. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you again next week.